You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Welcome into Just Another Sports Podcast here on the Sports Objective Network. I am your host, Kyle from LaGrange Barber, and joined with me tonight for episode 2. Unfortunately, he had to miss the first episode. We have the head coach of Northeast Academy in beautiful, historic, scenic Lasker, North Carolina, Mr. Stevie Fly. Stevie, welcome to show number 2 of your show.
Yeah. So sorry about last week, guys. I would a whole lot rather been with y'all last week than doing what I was doing last week. So appreciate you guys making the mention last week, and everybody prayers for me last week. What we went through is tough and still tough, but we're going to get there.
No doubt. I went through it with my mom recently.
Yeah.
And, well, if you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. If not, we won't, because I know it can get emotional when you start talking about it.
I got you.
It's up to you, man. Do you want to talk about it before we?
Well, I mean, just I my dad passed away last Wednesday. Which Daddy was 80 years old. Daddy had a lot of heart problems over the years, and to make it to 80 for Daddy was like making a regular person making it to 90. He was one of a kind. He was like a staple at Northeast Academy where I went to school at, because we lived right across the street from the school. He's in a better place now, but I do appreciate everybody checking in on me. All you guys, David, Kyle, Bubba, all you guys checking in on me, and all you guys out there that said a prayer for us. We definitely need them and still need them, but yeah, I'm going to miss him. And he was always, when I got the coaching job, or, the volunteer coaching job at the school, there was a guy that coached back in the 70s that Daddy was really close to. His name was Dave Davis, and he was actually in the Art Baker squad. He was an assistant coach for Art Baker at ECU. And then he went on to, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Ferrum College up in Virginia.
Yeah, we play him in basketball this year.
Yeah, he was the head coach there for a while, a long time. He was a legendary coach. He said, "Well, you got to try to live up to that." I said, "Well, we'll see. So actually, Dave Davis was his name, the guy that was coach, and he was actually at the funeral Saturday. So, but he's retired from Ferrum, not retired from coaching. But yeah, Daddy was something else. I'm gonna miss him, but I'm gonna try. I had almost 50 good years with him, and just gotta remember the good times I had with him.
Yeah, no doubt. It's hard. I lost my mom. My mom was 69 when she passed away in like March, and your dad made it to 80. It doesn't make it any easier, but
no.
In my opinion, when I look at things like this, and this is just the way I look at it. To me, 70 is old age. To me, anything after 70 is a bonus. And I know for any of our viewers right now that are some 72 or 73, they're probably flipping me off.
Yeah.
But that's just how I look at it. Your dad made it to 80. Brandon knows, personally, not everybody makes it to 80. And so your dad was lucky to be here that many years.
Let me just tell you some of the things that guy went through. I mean, this started in 96. He had a bypass. After the bypass, he had a valve blow off his heart. Had emergency surgery for that. Then went back for his 3-month checkup. They found a hole in his heart. They had to patch that. That was like a 14-hour surgery. Let's see. Had some other heart attacks, defibrillator, pacemaker, stroke, gallbladder surgery and this was after the heart problems. And then, what really put him down, he broke his hip about 3 years ago, and he just never really got his strength back from that. He just didn't have the, And COVID, well, he never got COVID, but not being able to go out because of COVID really depressed him too. So, but he went through a lot. He was one tough guy. I mean, I hope I can be as tough as he was.
He sounds like a warrior. Well, I hope you don't have to be.
I hope I don't have to be, but I hope in other ways I can be as tough as he is.
Yeah, no doubt. And you deal with what you have to deal with as it comes, as I found out myself. You'll be surprised what you can deal with until you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But glad you're here with us this week, Stevie, man, and just, grieve at your own pace. That'd be my biggest advice to you, not that you're asking for it. Grieve at your own pace. There ain't no timetable on grieving, and just because somebody else gets over something in 2 days, it might take you 2 years. Just
I'm finding that out too, bud.
Yep. So, Brandon, we're going to welcome you in now. We got a former East Carolina running back and assistant coach at Southeast Raleigh, the one and only Mr. Brandon Simmons. Brandon, every time I talk to you, when I think about you, I immediately go back to the 2008 UTEP game. And we were down to you and Norman. In fact, I don't even think Norman Whitley was healthy for that game. Was it just you and your brother?
So Norman was healthy, but at that present time, it really boiled down to whoever had the hot hand and running back by committee, because there was a lot of talented running backs in that class, and things just started clicking. But I appreciate the invite. It's always great connecting with you guys, and I look forward to talking ball with you guys again. Blessings to your families, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, Brandon.
Thank you for being here, bud.
Always good to have you on. Good running back, great human being. So glad to have you here, and we'll talk. I do want to talk briefly about your career, even though we've done it before. We haven't done it on this particular show. Before we get into breaking down the running back rooms and what's going on in Southeast Raleigh with high school football, but so when you look back at your time at East Carolina, is that UTEP game? Is that the game that stands out most for you, or is it a different game?
I will say that the UTEP game is very high on my list. Well, for two reasons. One, that game pushed us over the top. It really gave us the momentum to play in the Conference USA Championship. And it wasn't just me, but it was a whole team effort. The defense was on fire, and offensively we were rolling, and it was pretty awesome to be a major contributor on that day, which was senior day.
Yep.
We even returned a botched kickoff by them back for a touchdown. Okay, so everything was cooking there. But for me, one of the more memorable games that I recall from that season, it's easy to say the Virginia Tech or West Virginia game, but I want to break it down to the UAB game. And because the UAB game, up until that particular time, ECU
never won in Birmingham.
Yes, ECU did not win a lot of games in Birmingham.
They never had won.
Right. So for us to be behind, and I remember one play in particular, it was a fourth down in the fourth quarter. Our backs were to the wall. Coach Fitt, he gave me the call on a dive play on 4th and 3, picked up the first down. J.R. Rogers got in there, Norman Whitley got in there. And then, I got back in there on the goal line and drove it in and punched it in, and the defense got to stop. I want to say Pierre Bell got to stop, interception, etc. And the game was over. So for me, that game was the UTEP game was very, very important. But I would put the UAB game on the same tier, maybe a little bit higher, because that's the game that won the East. And once we won the East, that gave us the momentum against UTEP, and then for UTEP, we ended up taking care of Tulsa. But my experience was great.
Yeah, the UAB game, as Skip Holtz used to always say, it's not a pretty baby, but it's our baby. That was one ugly football game. I remember, Brandon, if I'm remembering right, did it sleet? Was there a little bit of sleet at UAB that night? Am I remembering? Is that the right game?
Yes. So there was a little bit of sleet. But the last time, so part of the reason why that game was very, very eerie for us was because the year before, like the Hawaii Bowl year, we went to Marshall, and all we had to do was beat Marshall, and we would have been playing in the championship. But we got dominated, right? Well, the year before that, my sophomore year,
Rice.
All we had to do was beat Rice, and we laid an egg. So, we went to UAB. And my sophomore year, I remember we lost the game on I want to say
Philip Henry.
Philip Henry, absolutely. Yep. So we lost the game that way. So there's a lot of emotion that was built into that game, but we felt that by winning that game, that took the monkey off our backs, and that helped catapult everything else. So I guess that's why the UAB game was very, very hard and challenging, because up until that game, nothing went our way in Alabama.
No, you're right, and it clinched the East, and it was a very big deal. You did have a game in between that, if I remember right. It was a game in between that and UTEP. It was a loss at USM, but then you guys bounced back after the Southern Miss game and beat UTEP. Do you remember your yardage against UTEP? It was your biggest day rushing.
I want to say it was like 128 yards, like 30 carries, three rushing touchdowns, one reception, touchdown, 5 yards, something like that. So, fun times to be a Pirate. I'll say that.
Sometimes just trying to remember back, it's hard to remember individual players and games. But am I remembering right? Did you have the big play in the Liberty Bowl against Arkansas?
Yes. So that play, yes, I did. So that play was we were in the pistol formation, and I was the fullback, and J.R. Rogers was behind me. And we've been practicing the play like all week. Coach Fitch called trap. It was a trap play to the right, and PP gave me the ball, and the line did a good job of blocking. And then suddenly I saw daylight, and I ran straight, and it was pretty cool because I looked up and I saw myself running on the Titantron, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And then as soon as I crossed the goal line, a lot of my teammates ran in and we celebrated, and yeah, that was a good time. Now, obviously, the ending was very disappointing.
Yeah.
But I will say that the experience down there was fantastic. We got a chance to see the Civil Rights Museum. We got a chance to, hang out with one another. We got a chance to eat great food. And, outside of the loss, everything was fantastic. Everything.
Yeah, the bowl game experience. And that brings me up to a question I'm going to ask you. And Stevie, jump in anytime you want to.
Okay.
Just a general college football question. You mentioned how valuable the bowl game experience was for you and how much you enjoyed it. What's your opinion on? And I know it's hard to say when you're sitting there, a kid who maybe comes from a poor background. Hell, if you even came from a middle class background, and you're about to go to the NFL and you're about to become a millionaire. The kids that sit out the bowl games, I'm torn on it. I want to say, play the damn game. You're part of the team. Don't let your teammates down. Be a college football player. Go get the bowl experience. Do what you're supposed to do. Finish what you started. But at the same time, I can see the other side of the coin also. You don't want to get hurt right before you're about to go make the most money you've ever seen in your life.
Absolutely. And to be fair, I've seen it multiple ways. I mean, like, seriously. I mean, like you guys, I understand both angles. And for me, I respect the decision of the athlete. I mean, if the athlete wants to play and they're a lottery pick, a first round pick, and, if they don't want to play, then, that's fine with me. What I do know is that there's a lot of depth on these teams, and it gives these younger guys an opportunity to get themselves out there, So I see both ways, and I understand both ways. At the end of the day, I personally think that the athlete and their family and their coaches just have to be on the same page with that decision. So I'm fine either way. I mean, it's kind of a bummer when you don't have a first round talent out there performing,
Right.
But at the same time, I want to see who else is on the roster. So I understand both ways.
Yeah, that's the way you got to look at it, because like Kyle said, I'm torn. I look at, of course, I never got past the high school level, but I understand that if you're gonna make some major money and you don't want to take the chance of getting that big injury that's going to hurt your draft stats. But I look. Here's a question for you guys. Back in our, I guess, our era of football in which we watch, back in the 80s and up into the 90s, these guys did it all the time. And I don't remember many of them having something like that. I know there's a calculated risk now, but these guys did it back then. And you look at a guy like
theoretically, the game's safer now.
Yeah, you look at a guy like Barry Sanders. I think his senior year played in the Hawaii Bowl or something, like way overseas. and took a chance there. But I see both sides, but I'm just saying, back in the day, these guys did it all the time. It never entered their mind to sit out the bowl game with their team.
Well, Stevie, to bring it full circle, in the Hawaii Bowl, and Brandon, I'll pitch it to you with this because he was your teammate, but a great example of somebody, and this is really before sitting out became a thing.
Yeah.
Chris Johnson upped
yeah.
his draft status because of his performance in the bowl game. So, Brandon, that's what I want to pitch
absolutely.
to you.
Yeah. So yeah, and that's what I was going at. So, so I love the bowl games. I think that is great for the game. From a business perspective, the pageantry is fantastic. The marketing is box office, and your stock could go up if you put on a show. Why? Because everyone in the country is tuning in to watch you play. Okay, but I'll take it a step further. So for example, my teammate Chris Johnson. Hey, listen, I knew he was a baller. We all knew he was a baller, but the world learned that he was a baller that day. And if it wasn't for the bowl game on a nationally televised, broadcast, no one else would have knew of him. But he ripped it up, and the rest is history. But I'll take it a step further. I love the bowl games, and I think the bowl games are important because those are memories that you're building that you'll never get back. Okay, and what I mean by it is this. So we talk about the games, like as a former player, we talk about the games, and I still talk to my teammates about the games, etc. But we talk more about, the non-game. We talked about, how what again, I came from a small town, so I didn't get a chance to go to Tennessee, right? I didn't get a chance to go to Hawaii, right? I didn't have, until I started playing football. So the opportunities that the bowl game presented and the memorabilia that I still have at my house right now from those bowl games, the jerseys in the trophy case, the plaques, etc. I mean, those are memories that last a lifetime, And once your pro career is done, I mean, let's call it for what it is. I mean, you're just a number. But when it comes to that college stuff, I mean, we're talking about unique items and relics that will never be replaced. So absolutely.
No, Brandon, I'm with you 100%, man.
Yeah,
I think that's a great way to put it. And maybe some players, hopefully, any of our players that listen to our podcast will listen to what Brandon said there and take that to heart and remember that come bowl season. Hopefully, you'll have that decision to make. Speaking of the past, we mentioned Chris Johnson. We got Brandon Simmons here later on the show. Stevie and I are going to give our top 5 favorite running backs in East Carolina history. This is not the top 5 best running backs.
Didn't you say Brandon Simmons was number 1 for both of us? We had to put Brandon Simmons for number 1.
Brandon's number 1.
Oh my goodness.
Let me ask Brandon one more thing before we get off here, because
I tried to get various running backs on here that I have on the list that didn't want to come on tonight. So maybe I need to put Brandon at number 1. He bailed me out.
Brandon, I don't know if you, and I'm sure you probably played other sports in high school, but don't you think, and maybe you disagree with me, don't you think there's something different about football that bonds guys together? Because you're going to war every Saturday or Friday or Sunday with 10 guys you may not like at the time, but on that particular day, they're like your brothers, and you're gonna take up for them. And I've still got, like, my wife kills me right now because I can tell her stuff that happened in my high school days, which has been, that's been 32 years ago, at a game, play by play, and I can't remember what to get from the grocery store that she told me that day. But don't you think football is a little bit different than any other sport as far as that bonding and making the memories like you were talking about?
Absolutely. And the reason why is because, well, I will say this now, I respect all sports like you. I like everyone up here on this podcast. And, there's a lot of coaches out here that's working hard. There's a lot of athletes that put a lot of time in. Communities are behind them. We get it. We understand. Okay. But football is very unique. And the reason why football is very unique is because it's hard. Not to say that the other sports ain't hard, but football is hard. Okay. Football is hard. Okay. And we tell our athletes all the time, and as long as I've been coaching, even as a former player, okay, if any athlete was to walk up to me as a coach and say, hey, listen, coach, thank you for the opportunity, but I want to hang this up, right? Like, I won't be mad. I won't be mad. I'll respect them as a person. I'll say, hey, listen, I understand you gave it a shot. Thank you for giving us an opportunity. I can still write you a letter of recommendation, etc. Okay. But football is so unique. You spend so much time together as
Yeah.
players, as coaches. I mean, for example, when Bubba sent me the text, hey, are you, do you want to come on? I said, oh man, like I was at practice right there, bleeding over, right? Like we were, because of the heat advisory, we had to go inside, we had to take pads off, and then we
Yeah.
back outside. But everybody's moving in the same direction. But football is very unique. It's very hard, but it pays dividends. Okay, you build lifetime bonds. I mean, a lot of my high school teammates, okay, college teammates, you have a brotherhood that'll never be replaced. And it runs deeper than the actual game itself.
Yep.
So everything about football, everything that it stands for, it's safer than it's ever been. It really is. But there's a proven fact, especially in the high school ranks. When your football team is good, everybody's smiling a little bit harder. Homecoming is a lot better. The food tastes a lot better. The administration is in a better mood. And hey, man, that's just the honest God truth. So
Yeah.
football.
And for our listeners, guys, we're gonna break down the East Carolina running backs room here soon. We got something here on the screen that needs to be read. Stevie, go ahead and take that.
You got you. I got you. Yeah, let us hear from you with your thoughts on your favorite all-time Pirate running backs, plus this year's running back room with Roger Harris, Marlon Gunn Jr., Gerald Green, Javius Bond, Kamara Edmonds, and Pop McKay.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that here in a minute. But since we're already on the topic of high school football, quickly, I'm going to ask each of you guys. We're going to start with you, Brandon. How's Southeast Raleigh looking this year? How's practice going so far? I assuming you guys have an endowment game Friday night.
Man, I'm loving it. So this is my first year here at Southeast Raleigh High School, known for putting out, tons of track and field athletes, women basketball players, defensive backs, football players. This is my first year here, and it's been a blast. Yes, so we open up, and this is actually the first bowl game like that I'll get a chance to coach in. But we're going to play in the Southside Classic, the Raleigh Southside Classic against Enloe at Enloe, and we're playing for the Bell. So it's pretty cool. The guys are very excited, and we as coaches, we're doing all we can to keep the guys focused. Our guys work hard; they've been working hard, and we're going to continue to hold them to a high standard there. But as a coach, this is year 13 for me. And I enjoy all the coaches that I'm working with. I enjoy the administration that I'm currently working with. I'm also a teacher in the building, and the goal is to get better every single day. So we're getting better, we're working hard, ducking the heat, and our first game is on Friday.
Friday gets Enloe, and you guys, your co-office coordinator, if I remember correctly. So you gonna drop 70 on them?
Well, so the number one goal is to win the game. Yes. So I'm co-offensive coordinator, quarterback coach. But wherever my head coach needs me to work at, I'm flexible. I mean, if he needs someone to assist with special teams, I don't mind helping there. I service the defense. But whatever our coaches need. The goal is to get it done. But the number one goal on Friday is to win the game. They're very, Coach Clark's doing a good job over there. With his athletes, they're working hard as well. And, we're just excited to hit someone besides ourselves. Our JVs actually play tomorrow night. So we're that's going to be fun.
How involved you are with the JVs? I mean, I not ever coaching high school ball. Does the JV team have a separate head football coach, or is it the same coaching staff? How does that work?
So different programs do different things. But in our current program, we do have a separate JV head coach, but all the assistant coaches help the JV program. Like,
Okay.
for example, I work with the varsity quarterbacks, but I also work with the JV quarterbacks as well. And it's a little bit more work on our end as coaches. But what I do love about it is that we get a chance to work with our young players as freshmen and sophomores. So by the time they become juniors and seniors, you can have those guys to take over the position and help coach up the technique the correct way. We have a lot of players. Yeah, absolutely. So we have a lot of players in our program. So it's very important that all coaches assist when they can, and it just works.
Varsity and JV combined, how many players are in your program?
Oh my goodness. Hard number. I would probably say maybe 85 to 90 athletes.
Stevie, do you want to go to Raleigh and kick him and then drive back to Alaska?
Can you send about 10 or 15 down my way?
He'll get them free. He'll get them free tuition at the academy there, Brandon.
Oh, I believe it. See, and I believe it because at the end of the day, and something else that I'm just learning about the high school experience is that, more now than ever before, athletes and their families have to do what's best for the family, and if it takes going to an academy to get A+ education and still get a chance to play 11 or 8-man football, basketball, track, hey, we definitely understand that.
And Stevie, you're the head coach at Northeast Academy there in Lasker, North Carolina. You play 8-man football. Do you guys open up this Friday or the following Friday?
Yeah, we open up Friday. We travel down to Columbia, which is about an hour and a half.
Terrell County.
Yeah.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Who are you playing?
Columbia. We're playing Columbia.
So they play 8-man football down there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you're playing a public school, but they're playing 8-man ball. Yeah,
we were actually 2 years ago, we had them scheduled, and I don't know what happened. They rescheduled the first week to our bye week, and then the when it got to that time, I think their numbers were so down that they just said they couldn't do it. So we're looking forward to it because we've got, I don't quite have 80 some between JV and varsity. I think between JV and varsity we may have between 25 to 30, which is really good for us. I got 17 on varsity and actually 5 seniors, which is, that's the key players there. We've got some guys, some underclassmen that are have stepped up over the last couple of years. And hopefully, I've got a couple positions that I've had to put guys in, and hopefully everything's going to work out. I think we've got a chance to be a really good team this year. We've got some big competition with Halifax Academy and Lawrence Academy. So, and that's going to be, they'll probably be near the top of the conference, and hopefully we'll be right up there with them.
It interests me, you guys playing Columbia Public School.
We played Madam Mesquite too.
Yeah. How many schools are doing 8-man ball now?
It's not, look, because the reason we're having to travel so far is because not many people are doing 8-man.
I didn't know any public schools were doing 8-man football.
I didn't either till Columbia came along a couple of years ago. And Madam Mesquite was always off to the, I always saw them out there, but we hadn't played them till this year. And now a lot of, some schools aren't even having 8-man teams this year. So, but then you've got like the 2As, the Parrott Academies, and I think
they tried to play 11-man ball briefly.
Yeah, Carrie Christian and Grace and John Paul. They're impressive. They are impressive. I think John Paul went 11-man this year though. They played 8-man last year. They had 45 on the roster, I think, last year, somewhere between 40 and 45 on the roster last year. So they moved up to 11-man.
Yeah, but Parrott Academy won the 11-man state championship at the private school level and played at Kinston High. I believe it was one of the Lenore County schools. I'm almost positive it was Kinston High. This is several years back, probably 2014 maybe. And Kinston High blistered them. Maybe that's why they decided to go back to 8-man. I don't know. But good luck to both of y'all Friday night and on the rest of the season. Yeah. Stevie, you'll be here every week. We'll talk about your games every week when it happens.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully we're talking about a lot of victories. And Brandon, hopefully a lot of victories Southeast Raleigh also. But move on now to the running backs room in East Carolina. Practice is going on, obviously. Second scrimmage is coming up this weekend. The first scrimmage is in the books. We broke down special teams last week, and we'll look at the running backs this week. And guys, I figure we'll start with a guy that everybody's very familiar with with Rajay Harris. And Rajay obviously came onto the scene strong back in 2020. And, you remember his performances against South Florida, against Navy. Then, after that, Rajay, he had a decent 21. And then in 22, he started off strong. He only played in 5 games and still finished, I believe, 3rd in rushing on the football team.
Yeah.
Guy who's very experienced, a guy who can be an every down back, but really is effective in goal line situations, 3rd down. And for a bigger back, Rajay's got some speed, and he also has really good hands. He catches the ball out of the backfield really well. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Rajay?
So I like Rajay, and you just hit the nail right on the head. He has great size, but part of the reason why he's a Division I running back is because he can move. He's very skilled, and he also has a high football IQ. Just some observations. Just from the games that I remember vividly him playing in, he understands pass protection. Great technique inside and out. When he's pass prone. But he also runs very good routes. He runs the swing route very well. He runs the arrow very well. He can also run the angle if asked to do so. But like you guys said, he makes his money running between the tackles, which is what you want in a big time running back. I do anticipate him hitting his stride about by game 2, game 3 to get his legs back under him. And I will say with confidence that once he returns to A+ form, forget about it. But I'm very excited about him returning. I'm happy that he was able to overcome his injury, and I can't wait to see him ball this year.
Yeah, he career yards at East Carolina, 1,445. That's in 25 career games. He's been there, done that. I saw him in that COVID year, and to me, he's never quite been. You see somebody as a freshman, and you just think, "Oh my God, he's going to be this year." To me, I use Dominique Lindsay as an example. Brandon, you play with Dominique. As a guy who you saw it, and he kept getting injured, and then and he got to come back that 09 season. He was supposed to be starting the 08 season, got injured. Then he came back that 09 season and was just a beast. And I'm hoping the same thing out of Rajay.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dominique, man, and the time I was there, listen, at the time it was all about competition. Then I look back, wow, man, that backfield there was a lot of talent back there. I mean, you mentioned Norman Whitley earlier, Richmond County, all-time leading rusher, at least up there at the top of the board, Shrine Bowl MVP. Chris Johnson, we know him. Dominique Lindsay, Charlotte Independent, did not know how it felt to lose a game. Jonathan Williams, all world talented. But yes, great comparison. Dominique, a balanced back, very strong in the weight room. A bull on the pass pro, can run good routes because at the time Charlotte Independent threw the ball a lot. So Dominique understood that, hey, if I can't catch the ball, I can't play. But he can also handle the mail in. He can also handle a bulk of carries between the tackles as well. So nothing but love for my teammate Dominique Lindsay. But that's a great comparison right there. Great comparison.
Definitely.
Yeah, and obviously, when you think about the running backs room, the first name I think of is Rajay Harris right now. The second back I think of, and for some people they may think of him first because they see the comparison, the similarity he has to Keaton Mitchell, and that's Marlon Gunn Jr., who is down from Louisiana, got a whole lot of speed.
Yes.
I really wonder how good he can be. Can he be as good as Keaton Mitchell was? I mean, it's not fair to compare and say, hey, you look like him, you run like him, you're as fast as him, so now go do what Keaton did last year. But that's what fans are thinking. Marlon Gunn can step into that Keaton Mitchell position. Brandon, what are your thoughts on Marlon Gunn, and can he be as good as Keaton Mitchell, or is it fair to compare?
I will say it is fair to compare, and it's not a slight, right? It's not a slight. It's fair to compare, and you did a good job of using your words carefully. You saying, "Hey, he could be that," because at the end of the day, what I know for a fact is this: when you come to ECU, you're going to work hard, and if you're working hard, you're going to improve every single day. So if he stays healthy and continues to get stronger, he's going to get faster by the time by the time he's a true upperclassman, you'll never know. But I remember his high school tape. His high school tape had pop. It's very. I actually seen him playing some defense as well. Heavy, hard runner, but very explosive. When you hit play on the tape for his high school on his high school film, he's outrunning angles. I mean, he did it all. He didn't come off the field. So I'm very excited about his potential. He's very skilled, and man, there's a lot of talent in that backfield. Wow.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny is he didn't get as many carries last year as people think he did. The most carries he ever got in a game last year was 15 against South Florida, but he had some long runs. Here I'm looking at it right in front of me. I'm trying to get he had a 46-yard run in the bowl game against Coastal Carolina. He had a 26-yard run against Tulane. So you see the potential there for big plays out of him, despite limited carries from Gunn. And you see in his high school film. Stevie, what are your thoughts on Marlon Gunn? Did you get a chance to see him play any last year?
He's got a chance to be as good as Keaton, but it's like you said, not fair to really compare him to Keaton. But I'm just excited about you get that 1-2 punch with him and Rajay back in the backfield. And Rajay, you heard Coach Houston talk about you can't tell he's had an injury after seeing him in practices on the field. But I think this guy is going to show some people something this year. I think it's going to be his coming out year this year with that speed, because you can't teach speed. And with
Correct.
that, you saw that with Keaton. And as bad as I hate Keaton as a Raven right now, but I hope Keaton has a good career. But I think this is going to be a good 1-2 punch if they can stay healthy.
And perhaps a 1-2-3 punch, because you got Georgia.
Yeah.
Southern.
Oh yeah.
You got Georgia Southern,
right?
Georgia Southern transfer Gerald Green,
exactly,
who had a lot of carries from Georgia Southern. He was never their featured back. I think he was typically the number 2 back, but he had 240 offensive snaps during his career at Georgia Southern, 88 carries for 480 yards with 6 touchdowns last year. What was this? I'm trying to find his career yards, guys. I'm sorry.
Career yards. Hold on, I'll get it for you. Career yards was 1,456 yards, 256 attempts, and scored 13 touchdowns.
There you go. So he's a proven commodity. I think he's a guy you'll probably, because I know they're testing a lot of different guys with kickoff returns and punt returns. If Green can do that, because he's going to be sharing snap. He may be 3 deep. He may be number 3 on the depth chart. So he's a guy that you may see in special teams returning kicks and punts quite a bit. But I know Bubba's watched a lot of film on Green. He's very impressed with him. Brandon, have you seen film on him?
Yes, I have as well. And I will say with confidence that if he is not the feature guy or number 2, he can definitely touch the ball in meaningful games, right, as a change of pace and on special teams. And basically, it's like this. Anytime that you have a lot of skill players and there's only a certain amount of snaps in the game on offense and defense, you better believe they're going to be on special teams. So don't be surprised if our special teams is near the top of the conference when you have talented guys like that can go someplace else and probably start. And not to say he won't start here, right? I mean, it's
right.
Truly it's truly a competition. But when given opportunity, I'm confident that he'll be able to make the most of his chances. I mean, here I'm thinking about running back screens or draws or swing passes or just a play or two. Yeah, absolutely. You can do so many things with him.
And up until this past year, he ran Georgia Southern's kind of running a triple option type offense up until the last year. So he's familiar with doing a lot of different things out of the backfield because when you're running that triple option offense, as a running back, you're blocking, you're catching, you're doing everything.
Yes, everything. And I've once coached in a triple option offense. We had a chance to go to the Naval Academy and study what they do, and to play in that offense, you have to be disciplined. You have to be intentional with every single step you take, and you have to be very skilled, and you have to be sharp mentally, because you might be asked to arc block here, you might be asked to cut block there, you might be asked to take the handoff and run between the tackles. Oh, by the way, you might be asked to line up on the wing and run an orbit motion and receive a pitch. So those guys, so anyone who comes from an offense, a triple option offense, you better believe they're coming to the table with a lot of different skill sets.
Yeah, and he ran that most of his time at Georgia Southern. They got away from that this past year, hired Clay Helton, and did not run the triple option this past year, but he is very familiar with it. As we continue looking at the running back room, next guy I want to bring up, UNC transfer, I believe he transferred back in 21, Camaro Edmonds. I have not seen Camaro play. I don't know anything about him. Very cool name for a running back. I mean, his parents named him. I mean, what you couldn't have a better name for a running back.
Exactly.
I'm assuming you're familiar with Camaro, Brandon.
Yes. So he's from Eastern North Carolina. I want to say he played his high school ball at Havelock.
Right.
Very, very,
good
very good program. Very strong runner. Again, he went to Carolina, and to be honest, when he was coming out, I'm sorry, let me slow down. So when I looked at him just standing there, I was like, this dude is too big to be playing running back. But once I saw him run a few times against Jacksonville and all them boys, I was like, wow, no wonder he's going to Carolina, because he's a big boy, but he can run. Okay. He was also good friends with Tymir Brown, current Pirate, Tymir Brown. So that's how I got the chance to look at his tape in high school. He was a dominant runner. Well, he went to Carolina, and they had a lot of talent in the backfield, and he got lost in the shuffle. So he came home to ECU, and I'm confident that if he's not getting carries, he'll be able to contribute in some way, shape, or form. So he just haven't been given a chance yet.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if he gets the ball in his hand this year, be it in the backfield. Do you think he could be utilized? Obviously, utilized some way on special teams. But do you think he could be utilized as a return man on special teams?
Well. So in the return game, his body type will be more like a like the second level. Maybe not so much the deep guys. The deep guys are usually wide receivers.
Up, man.
Those types. So, but I do think that he could, he can handle like where the tight ends play. Because he has good hands, he can run, and he has good size. And if he was to catch the ball in space, I don't really think there's a lot of people that would want to tackle him in space. But he can also run as well. I can also see him as like a personal protector on the punt team. I can also see him as a L4 or L5 on the kickoff team, like linebacker type guys that can run downfield. So if he's not contributing, at running back immediately, I'm confident that they will use him somewhere on special teams.
Yeah, and a guy like that with that kind of athletic ability, yeah, you got to get him on the football field somewhere. Another guy who I remember when he first came here, maybe it was just his name excited everybody, but Pop McKay, another great name, Camaro and Pop. So you got Pop McKay. We've seen Pop a little bit here and there. What are y'all's thoughts on Pop? Brandon, start with you.
Yeah, it's really the same thing. We just named off, my goodness, quite a few running backs. It just really boils down to opportunities. And I will say that these athletes, if they weren't talented, they wouldn't even be here, But there's only one football and there's only one position. So, I'm confident that he'll stay ready for his chance, so that when he does get his chance, he'll make the most of it. But, we just have a crowded room, and, like Edmonds, if he's not contributing immediately, into too deep special teams or even scout team duty, but he's too talented to do nothing. So I could definitely see him contributing on special teams, if not in the backfield.
With a brand new quarterback, for all intents and purposes, I know Mason Garcia played in that Navy game in 2020 during when Holton had COVID. But we're gonna have a brand new quarterback. We're very inexperienced at receiver. Offensive line, I think, is going to be probably a little bit better than people think it's going to be. I like some of the pieces there. The running back room really is something we're going to have to lean on, particularly early in the year. So it's good to know that we have the depth we have there. Obviously, losing Keaton is a huge loss. But I think from a depth standpoint at running back, we're as good as we've been in a long time.
And crowded room at running back is a good problem to have.
Yeah, definitely.
Very good problem to have.
Yeah. Do we have any questions from any of the listeners, Stevie? If not, I'll move on to our list.
We got Robert Matthews is actually it's not running back related, but I know starters haven't been named yet. But who is the front runner for the kicking duties?
We talked about it last week. If you want to go back and listen to that, just another sports podcast last week with Andrew Bays. We talked about that. We went over Rajay Harris is in the mix, Marlon Gunn's in the mix, Green's in the mix. So three of the running backs we mentioned. Josiah Hatfield. Jesus. There was a ton of names actually, and I do not remember them now off the top of my head, Robert. I apologize. Again, if you go back and listen to last week's Just Another Sports podcast on the Sports Objective Network, I had Andrew Bays on here, and we went into depth on that.
Okay, and that's really the only question. We've got a lot of people.
With the Jerry Rice VMI transfer left the program. Yeah, Conrad and
Carson Smith
and Leith Majan are all looking good. I think last year a lot of our kicking woes were due to the operations, and you guys both coach and can talk about that. If your operation ain't right with your field goal game, if the guy ain't holding the ball right, if he's turning the laces in, if the snaps aren't getting there on time, it's going to screw the whole operation up. It don't matter who's kicking.
Look, it's funny that you mentioned that because we got pushed into the gym today. And what do? When you're in the gym, you do special teams.
Practices ever.
Absolutely. Or practices over. So we got a chance to get into the gym, and we were working on PAT, and we were timing the operation. And it is so important that the operation is very sharp. A lot of people don't think about the operation, okay? But here's the operation, okay? So first things first, you have to make sure that you have all 11 people out there. Okay, linemen, especially if they're not starters, in all likelihood, they're going to try to come off the field. Okay, now I don't know how rules are in you guys' programs, but who our rule is this: whoever was on the field as a lineman, you stay in. Okay, right. You stay in. So that's 5. Okay, now you got to get your 2 tight ends. Okay, now you got to get your 2 wings, and then lastly, you need a holder and a kicker. Okay, some people will put a quarterback at the holder. I always prefer to put a super athlete there. That's just me. For example, when I was at Millbrook, Tyler Snead, former Pirate Tyler Snead, he was our holder. And guess what? He always made an extra point fun. He'll intentionally keep the ball and run around and call fire and throw the ball in there, run it in a few times. Anyway, long story less long. Special teams, the operation is so important. And everybody takes it for granted until it's bad. So you have to put time into it. You have to put time into the operation.
Yeah, and Coach Houston has made it very clear. He said it without saying it, that they're putting more time into special teams during fall practice than they have in the past. He's made it very clear that we're working on special teams very hard, and it's evident. You bring in a transfer from VMI who was all what conference does VMI play in? Big South. He was all Big South, and if that's not the right conference, somebody will correct me. And he leaves the program because he was 4th on the depth chart during fall practice. So that shows you how good our kickers potentially are, and hopefully we've got the operation woes fixed. We promised you guys a top 5 running backs list. This is not top 5 greatest in East Carolina history. These are our personal favorites. And what we'll do, Brandon, if you want to jump in at any point, feel free. But me and Stevie are going to rotate here. And I'm going to make sure I got my list here so it makes sense. Yeah. I wrote it down. This is not right. Let me get to where it makes sense. It's on another piece of paper. I was looking at that piece of paper and I said, that does not make any sense at all. Let me
I will tell you this. This was a hard list to make.
It is very hard, extremely
hard, and that's a good problem. That's a good problem.
Exactly. And anybody I left off this list,
I made an honorable mention list. I made an honorable mention list.
I got several honorable mentions over here.
All right, so we're gonna start off here and get this is favorites. This is not. I'm not saying this is the greatest.
Favorites.
These are our personal favorites. Number 5 is a guy I never saw play at East Carolina, but I love this dude. Every personal interaction I had with him has been tremendous. He's one of the funniest human beings alive. Great person, treats everybody like he's a nobody, even though he had a great career for the New England Patriots. Love this guy personally. Yeah. That's why he's on my list, even though he was playing before I was born. The one and only at number 5, touchdown, Tony Collins. One of my favorite running backs in East Carolina history, not because of what he did here. I know what he did here was tremendous. I didn't see it. It was in the 70s. I was born in 1980. But he's just one of my favorite people in Pirate Nation. Tony Collins is hysterical. Who's your number 5, Stevie?
Number 5 for me, and like you said, Kyle, this isn't just because of what he did on the field, but I had a chance to interview him a couple years ago, and just a great guy. And I actually got to see him in that Carolina game, the 70-41 game. Breon Allen.
He's a good guy.
And, between him and I think was it Hairston that year.
Chris Harrison was also a good guy.
Yeah, a great 1-2 punch with that offense, that Lincoln Riley offense. And but yeah, Breon Allen is my number 5.
Yeah, and I could chime in here. Like both of those guys you guys just named, fantastic. Touchdown. Got a chance to speak with him on quite a few occasions. Very selfless individual, very selfless. I mean, it's to the point where you didn't even know that he played football because he never talks about himself. But he's a great ambassador to Eastern North Carolina. Definitely. He does a lot for the communities. He's high energy. Yes, he's very, yes, great picks. Both of those guys are great picks.
Kyle, do you remember? Were you old enough to remember seeing him play at New England?
Yeah, but I didn't watch much NFL growing up. I did not become a football fan until I was 13 years old. Okay. So I, I mean, to see, of course, at that age for me, I think he was the first one I really remember seeing from ECU that made a big impact in the NFL. Of course, Biner came after that, and then so on. But Tony Collins, and to see him in the Super Bowl that year, of course, unfortunately, they got smacked by the Bears that year. But to see him in the Super Bowl, that was what I was. I was 13, I think, that year, and I was like, that's an ECU guy playing in the Super Bowl. And I know many of them have played before. Zach Valentine with the Steelers, but that was one of the first ones I remember in the Super Bowl. It's always exciting, even now when a Pirate makes Super Bowl, everybody gets fired up. My number 4 is some people may say the greatest running back in ECU history. I mean, it's arguable. You'd argue it with. I think it would be probably between him, Tony Collins, and Carlos Crumpler. But Chris Johnson, I got at number 4. Chris is a guy. To me, you look at his whole career at East Carolina. He always had flashes. He always made big plays. But his senior season was just so special. That 2007 season. He led the nation in all-purpose yards, if I remember correctly. He was just a beast, man. I remember some of the big plays he made, obviously, against Boise State. Big plays he made against UNC in 2007. Brandon, you were on that team, so you can speak before Stevie gives his number 4. Talk about Chris Johnson in 2007.
Yeah, well, so CJ, man, I mean, I've known him, since my earlier days there at ECU, and I will say that He's always had the potential, but what really took his game to the next level is when he started spending more time in the film room. I remember vividly where, and again, Coach Smith held us to that standard. Coach Junior Smith held us to that standard. Like, when we were able to, like, his words were simple. When you're not in the classroom, you need to make time to watch film. Well, going into that final year, I noticed that CJ was spending a lot more time with film. All the running backs that year was bouncing ideas off of each other's heads, and it just clicked. A lot of people don't know, but he was a great pass protector. Like he was a very good pass protector. I mean, he's always been dynamic, running straight. But what took his game to the next level was his film and his shake in the open space. He started learning how to make people miss in open space, and the rest was history. But hard worker, he can always run. He can always sprint. But he got stronger. He started watching tape, and he started making people miss in open space, and the rest was history.
Brandon, what year did you join the program? Was it 05 or 06?
So I joined the program in 06. So I was here 6, 7, and 8.
Okay. So you don't remember this play, but when I think about Chris Johnson's best plays at East Carolina, and I promise we'll get your number 4, Stevie.
Oh, you're fine.
When I think about Chris Johnson's best plays at East Carolina, it's so funny. There was a random play against Rice in 05 where he got behind their safeties and he caught the ball at about the 40-yard line, R40. There was not anybody within 30 yards of him by the time he got to the 50. I don't know if that game wasn't even televised. It was against Rice. It was 05. It was streamed to be the old CBS All Access. So I don't know how many people even got to see that play if you weren't at the game. I don't know. Bubba's producing. If anybody else remembers that play, it's Bubba. I guarantee it. Bubba remembers everything.
He's talking about the 80-yard screen pass against North Carolina too.
Yeah, that's another one. I mentioned that when I said big plays against North Carolina. That was what I was referring to. But
I remember quite a few plays. I mean, I remember the screen play. We called that play Pinto Right. Okay, so all of our screen plays were named after cars. We had Mazda screen, we had Saturn screen, but that was Pinto Right. And
why do y'all use any cool cars?
Yeah, Pinto.
Yeah, well, so Pinto, and I think that the language behind Pinto was that a Pinto was slow, so like slow screen. So the footwork was when the ball snapped, the running back had to set up behind the guard, and then 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, slide to the right, and the quarterback put it on them, and you catch the ball, and then the rest is history. But I remember that play. I remember what he did to UCF. He carved them up nicely. I remember when he ran wild against Memphis. He had quite a few games that wasn't televised, and
that Memphis game in 07 that you're referencing, he ran wild again. But so did Patrick Pinckney. I remember Pinckney had several quarterback keeps in that game.
Yes. And I want to say, that was a high-scoring game, too.
It was.
Bubba's also talking about a run versus UAB where he made multiple spin moves and trucked the blazer to get in the end zone. And right in front of the Murphy Center. It was like a 25 to 30-yard run.
Yep, I remember that, too.
I do not remember that for whatever reason offhand, but if I thought hard enough, I probably would.
There was so many, though. I mean,
that 05 play against Rice is one nobody else remembers except me. That play just sticks out in my head for whatever reason. All right. So who's your number 4, Stevie?
All right, number 4, and this is a guy. That 91 team was pretty special. Of course, everybody talks about the Peach Bowl team, but a guy that was like the workhorse in the backfield with him, Cedric Van Buren, is number 4 for me. Catching that touchdown pass in the Peach Bowl and just with that wide open offense. A lot of people didn't talk about that the running back there. They talked about of course Dion, Hunter, Jeff, and Luke, but Cedric Van Buren was a big part of that offense.
Yeah, you don't have a good offense if you don't have a good running back.
No.
You don't do what you did that year without a good running back. So that's a good pick. I don't have anything to add to that. I kept
and the
up
name
with
is just I remember the name hearing hearing it on the radio the first time, Cedric Van Buren, and I was like, that is so cool.
That's a good name. It is a good name. I number 3. We'll move on to number 3. Like I said, I have nothing to add to that. I was around during the Peach Bowl season, but that was before I became a diehard. But I was, I wish I was a diehard at that time. Obviously, my number 3 on the list is the guy that was around about the time I became a diehard. This guy was the heart and soul, arguably, of the team about the time I became a diehard, and that's Mr. Junior Smith. Junior Smith, undersized, would get lost in the middle of the defense, and you see him come squirting out for a 50-yard touchdown run. Had multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Who can forget, the fumble Rooski play they called the Gamecock that Junior Smith ran against South Carolina. Junior Smith, fantastic football player, and apparently out of E.E. Smith in Fayetteville. Yeah. And Stevie, what are your memories of Junior?
Junior Smith. Yeah, well, you're going to think I'm lying, but that's my number 3 as well. What is it? 3-time honorable mention All-American, the all-time leading rusher at ECU. And like you said, an undersized guy. So, me being the small guy.
Yeah, I forgot he's the all-time leading rusher, right?
Yeah, all-time leading rusher, over 3,700 yards. Yeah. Being the undersized guy, I always like to pull for those guys because I was like that in school too. Rushed for over 100 yards 16 times, 200 yards twice. And only player in school history to have 3 consecutive 1,000-yard rushing seasons. So, you can't deny Junior Smith is probably one of the greatest, and one of my third on my list is favorite ECU running back.
Yeah, and it's funny. You want to know how good Junior Smith was? He had an NFL running back sitting behind him when he graduated. Jared McFell went on to have a great senior season and then play in the league. So, Brandon, do you? I don't know. Were you following Pirate football in the '90s? Did you get to see Junior Smith play? I know he was coaching when you played.
So I didn't get a chance to watch him play like in real time, but from time to time, he was my college coach. From time to time, we'll break out some of the old tape, and we'll break out some of the old tape. Because sometimes, we'll be sitting around and we'll be talking, and he say, "Listen, this is what I mean by the shake," and we're like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" And then he'll find that clip, and we're like, "Ooh." And that's I don't know if we can physically do that. That was cat quick, but
how was Junior as a coach? Yeah,
so Coach Smith. So I will say that Coach Smith, he challenged us to be more than an athlete. From E.E. Smith, which is not far from my hometown, Newton Grove, North Carolina, Cumberland County. Eastern North Carolina, you know how it is. You have to work 2 times harder just to make things even. So he really forced us to be a student athlete. Like, we would talk about film, right? He will draw diagrams up. He'll ask us, he'll share adjustments with us, etc. We'll talk football, but most importantly, he understood that that we can't play this game forever. So he really challenged us to take care of our academics. And we're all glad that we listened, because guess what? Our days are done. But that's probably the best memory that I have of Coach Smith. He really put the student ahead of the athlete.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And I wish it was done more often now in college football, where unfortunately, being a student, for bad or for worse, with NIL, pay for play, etc., it's becoming secondary. And he gave you good life lessons, and now look at you now. Playing career is long gone, but you're a successful coach and teacher, and I'm sure Junior had a large impact on your life beyond just playing football. My number 2 is one of your former teammates that we already mentioned, Brandon, and a guy that I always loved. And I don't know, we've had him on the podcast. I've interviewed him, but whenever Dominique Lindsay played, particularly his senior season, 2009, he always just seemed like he was pissed off. Lindsay always ran pissed off to me. He just always seemed like he wanted to punch somebody, and I love that. I remember I was sitting in Dowdy Ficklin Stadium in 2009, before the conference championship game against Houston. And the Houston players came out before the game. This wasn't on ESPN. This is, I'm always getting the stadium early. And they danced on our logo at midfield. And Dominique Lindsay was so fired up and mad. His teammates were holding him back in warm-ups. He was ready to go over there and fight them all. And I love that kind of dude. I love somebody that's just not looking for trouble, but always ready for it. Brandon, is that how Dominique was, or did I get the wrong impression of him?
No, man. Listen, so Dominique, definitely one of my all-time favorite teammates. Just because when my brother and I first joined the team, he was one of the first people, along with Alice Taylor, Dante Brown, those guys, Will Bland, to welcome us with open arms. He was really one of the guys that I spoke to the most in the running back room, for two reasons. One, he was just a real dude. Two, he's been around success. He's been around a lot of success. And playing at a small school like Hopton, I didn't get a chance to play, at a Charlotte Independent or play against a New Bern. So I always ask him questions. Hey, how does it feel to play the state championships? How does it feel to operate in a first class program, with Coach Knox as the head coach? How does it feel to be the teammate of Chris Leak at the time, And he was able to share that wisdom with us. And I think that value added a lot to our team, into our running back room. But he's a A1 guy, good dude. But yeah, like you said, man, don't get him pissed off, man, because if you get him pissed off, man, all that Charlotte is coming out of him, and nothing good comes out of that. Absolutely. Yeah, I used to, on the sideline, I used to love watching Dominique run, man. He ran hard behind his pads, and very fiery, man. Good dude.
Who's your number two, Stevie?
All right, first, Matt is up here talking about Junior Smith had elite balance, and shifting this dude was a beast, strong for an undersized back. So, yeah, definitely.
Well, Simmons should know. He played with him.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make sure I got that in. Number two, you already talked about earlier. I mean, probably the most successful, maybe the most successful running back in the NFL out of ECU, Chris Johnson. I just remember when, Chris came out. I mean, he had the coming out and seeing how fast he was and the success we had after that. He put, those teams with Skip Holtz and him on there, and all those guys on there, put ECU football back on the map. And then when he goes to the combine and sets the combine on fire with that 40, man, he was just awesome. And you never knew. It was always a chance he was going to bust a play. And you never, how do I say it? It was never
you never wanted to look away. You couldn't go.
No,
you could never go get a soda.
Yeah, it was always a chance he was going to bust something wide open. I mean, and Chris Johnson's my number two.
Yeah. Brandon, you already commented on Chris, so I'm gonna move on to my number one. Unless you had something else you wanted to say. My number one is going to be somebody it might be a little surprising to some people. Who my number one is. It's from the Ruffin McNeil era, and I love this guy. He's a guy that to me embodies what a Pirate is. He came on from junior.
Hold on before you say anything. Because Matt has said $100 that I can guess who Kyle's number one running back is.
All right. Well, I just gave away a lot of it.
Well, you just put it up there.
I just said. If he can't guess now, then I'd be worried. But go ahead, Matt. Put it up there. Let's see if you're right. I would hope to God you'd be at this point.
He's probably got it right now because you did give away. I think you gave it away, but he had it up there before you started. So we'll see.
All right. Are we going to put it on the screen, or you just want me?
Oh no, he hadn't guessed yet.
All right.
Bubba's asking who it is.
All right. No, it's not Brandon Simmons. He's right up there, though.
He put it up there, so there you go.
Yep. Ventavious Cooper. Love pick. Cooper. When he came here, look, I don't remember if people remember the story. He was a junior college quarterback. The kid never played running back.
Yes, he
He
was.
was he was a high school quarterback, and we were looking for a running back because we had a flip in the recruiting class. And Ruff contacted him or Lincoln contacted junior college down in Mississippi, asked, hey, you got anybody, a running back, know anybody down there, different team, whatever, from that junior college rank? He said, no, but I know a quarterback that's committed, I believe it was to Murray State. And he said, I think he would make a hell of a Division I running back. And the rest of the story is they were correct. I remember he was buried on the depth chart. UTEP again, Brandon. 2012 against UTEP. We had a running back suspended. We had running backs injured. We were basically just down to him. And he Wally pipped everybody because he never looked back. He went from third or fourth string on the depth chart to by the end of the game, the crowd was chanting "Coop." And
I remember that.
Do you remember the story? He walked up to Shane Carden and said, Shane, why are they booing us, man? We're winning. He said, they're not booing you, dude. He said, they're saying your name. He said, what are you talking about? He said, listen, they're saying Cooper. He thought they were booing. He had nobody ever chant his name like that.
Evidently not.
And
he was definitely
Brandon.
was definitely one of my favorite most recent running backs to watch as well. Very quiet, but always took care of his business. One cut runner, workhorse.
Whew, he could cut on a
workhorse.
dime.
Yes, he could. He can cut on a dime. So I definitely enjoy watching his career unfold. Good
cut
pick.
on a dime, which to me that is my favorite attribute of a running back. If you can cut, it's so pretty to watch. And then he was a big game player. His biggest games,
was
in history, were against go back and look it up. Were against NC State, UNC, and the bowl game against Ohio. Those were his three biggest games.
Yes,
big players step up in big games.
Exactly.
And I loved Vontavious Cooper. A lot of people probably wouldn't have him as number one, but he was my number one. Who is your number one, Stevie Fly?
All right. This number one is probably the years I really started being a diehard ECU fan back in the early 80s. And I think that'll probably give it away right there. He was a workhorse at ECU, went on to have a great NFL career between the Browns, Redskins, and unfortunately the Ravens. Ernest Biner. When I started listening on the radio to ECU football back in '82, and hear him, you were constantly hearing his name. And then the '83 team that was so great, 8-3. I think they lost the 3 games by combined 13 points to.
It was not very many.
To all
Miami,
the Florida
State. Yep.
Yeah, that first game, and I hate I missed last week because we were talking about home openers. Even in a loss, not home opener, but the opener. Even in a loss that year in '83, the game against Florida State, I think WITN televised that game that year. I may be wrong, but I know I saw it somewhere. The 47-46 loss to Florida State, and I mean. That team was just, to go 8-3 and lose to like the Florida teams like that and still not make a bowl game and be ranked 20th in the nation in the final poll. It just, I can't understand it till this day how that happened. But, Ernest Biner, and I pulled for him with the Browns, pulled for him with the Redskins. I even pulled for him a little bit with the Ravens. But I'm glad to see he got a Super Bowl ring with the Redskins. But he's my number one favorite ECU running back.
Well, and I just want to add this right here. A lot of people might not even know this, but he was also Chris Johnson's running back coach for the Titans.
For the Titans, correct.
Yep. So that's also a pretty cool connection right there as well.
Yeah, and what are the odds of that? That's super weird.
Very
slim. You really think about it. Good pick for number one. He's on my honorable mention list. I'm gonna run through my honorable mentions, and you can do the same, Stevie.
Okay.
Ernest Biner. I also have a guy from the late '90s up here. A couple of guys, or early 2000s, late '90s. Now I'm getting my years confused. Anyway, I'm just gonna shut up and name them. Art Brown, Marvin Towns.
Yeah.
I know Marvin was JT. He was one of the shining spots of the JT era. a guy I already mentioned, Jarris McPhail, who would probably be higher on my list if he had started longer, but he was sitting behind Junior. Yeah. After that is a guy I didn't never see play, but deserves to be up here, Carlos Crumpler.
Yeah.
And then my other honorable mention, I have two more. One, Keaton Mitchell, obviously. Keaton just graduated from East Carolina, and Keaton with the Ravens right now, and hopefully he's going to do big things in the league. I would be surprised if he didn't make the roster. I'd be shocked.
Yeah, I mean, I can't see him not making a.
Yeah, he should definitely make the roster.
Somebody's going to pick him up.
Somebody's going to sign him the next day.
Yeah. Yes, he's too valuable, at least on special teams, at the very least.
Did you get to see any of the Ravens preseason game the other night?
I did not. I
didn't either. I think
Brandon,
I got
did you see any of it?
Well, yes. So I got a chance to see some of it. One of his big time runs got called back. I want to say it was like a stretch right play. He hit the seam and he took it in, and they called it back. But the team really likes him as well. He also had a big time return. I want to say it was like 28 yards. Every time the reporters are talking about the Ravens, it seemed like they're always name dropping him. So I think he's doing a good job, and I think that he should continue to focus on what he can control, which is the reps that he's getting, make the most of it. And the rest will take care of itself. But he's definitely tearing it up. So if the Ravens don't want to keep him, you don't want to play against him. Trust me.
He should have been drafted. It's ridiculous.
He should have been. Yeah. If you listen to, I listen to a lot of the NFL teams podcasts, the Locked On podcast. He listens to the Ravens one, and he gets mentioned a lot on that Locked On Ravens.
Yes, he does.
Podcast.
And and then I had a couple more up here, but Brandon Simmons, actually, you made my honorable mention list. I'm not just saying that. Not only because of your career here, but also because you've been good to us personally. You've been on the podcast multiple times. You took part in our podcast, our first ever live podcast event, our reunion party, back 5 years ago now, Brandon. That's been, and so not only for what you did at East Carolina, but just being good to us over the years. Brandon Simmons, definitely on my Pirates all-time great running back list.
I mean, I appreciate it, and we talked a little bit about this at the top of the show. I mean, my experience at ECU was a great one. I was a part of a great run. It was pretty awesome to help the program through special teams, and on the offensive side, return back to the ranks, right? Being a part of 3 bowl teams, and taking those life lessons and pouring it into my current student athletes and getting into coaching myself, giving back to the community. Again, that was all passed down from my former high school coaches, college coaches. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, I got to ask you this, because most of the guys I interview, like whether they're NFL players or college players, and especially being an ECU player and playing at Dowdy Fickle, what was it like for you the first time you ran out in Dowdy Fickle Stadium for a game? What was that atmosphere like to you?
Wow. So it's funny because one of my coaching friends, we were teammates together at
that was
Elizabeth
06
State.
Memphis, a comeback win, by the way.
Yes, it was. It was a comeback win. It was wow. So the emotion was very high, because as a high school student athlete, you could only dream of playing on a college ranks, yet alone Division I. Well, once that became a reality, the moment was tremendous. So our entrance, which I still think is at the top of all of college football, I'm biased, but I still think it's the truth. And at that time, what we would do is we would always hang out in the Murphy Center in the weight room. We would talk. We would meet as a position group. And then Coach Skip Holt said, "Hey, it's time to go." And then when he say that, everybody get loud. Everybody know what time it is. And we all lined up shoulder to shoulder. And there's always smoke. There's always sparks. And once the cannons go off, that's when you know it's showtime. So The configuration that year, or those years when I was there, was
The
like this.
boat.
So the band, so the boat, oh man, that came like my junior senior year, which was crazy.
Okay. So y'all had the tunnel
So we
played
had
the
the tunnel the first year. But the last 2 years we had the boat.
Okay.
But we also had the band. The band will be split, right? And
Yeah.
and when the cannon is going off, the crowd is going crazy. We're like running through the tunnel that the band created, right? Fireworks are going up. The fans are on their feet. A lot of energy. You see the the pirate flag on the telecom. I mean, it's larger than life, man. It's larger than life. And when you come out on the victory end, it makes it even better. So great experience. Absolutely loved it. I'm actually getting hyped thinking about it right now. And great experience, man.
I'm gonna ask you real
Experience
quick
worth a lifetime.
before Stevie gives his honorable mentions. I do want to ask you real quick since we were talking about your first game, that 06 Memphis game. I don't remember. Did you play in that game? If you did, it was on special teams, if I remember right. But what do you remember about that game? I remember trying to remember exactly. I think we got down 21-7 or 28-14 or something like that. And then it was just a storm of a comeback in the second half with a pick six. And it went, not only, if I remember right, not only did we come back and win, we ended up coming back and winning it by a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah, so that game, so I didn't play in that game. I dressed out, and the reason
Okay.
why was because that was really my first game back. My brother and I, we had to go back home, because matter of fact, it was after the Navy game. No, it was after the UAB game. That's what it was.
Correct. UAB.
So after the UAB game, we got the call that my grandmother passed, right, like in Newton Grove. So we, again, shell shock, right? We ended up not being at practice on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, okay, or Wednesday. We came back Thursday, Friday, and we were still able to dress out. But Coach Holtz was like, "Hey, listen, take as much time as you need it," because we're a close knit family,
Right.
and it was a shock that she passed. So that's what happened. So we didn't play, or I didn't play in the Memphis game, but we had a bye week that following week, and then against Virginia, you know, that's when I started playing against Virginia
That's another good
after
one.
that bye week.
That was a big,
So
that was a big win over the Who's.
Yeah.
In Greenville. That was a fun game.
Memphis score was 35-22.
Yeah, they were up 20-0 or 20-7 at one point in that
yeah,
game.
that was crazy. That was a crazy game.
I remember that game well. It's such great memories. I wish I gotta up my DVD collection. I know people have more of these games than I do. I got a ton. I got a huge collection.
Oh, those games are out there.
It was 20-7 and in the second quarter.
Yeah, you got the box score up there.
Yeah, then you had like Chris Johnson with a 5-yard run, Zach Slate with a pick six.
Yep.
Andre Allison with a 33-yard touchdown pass from James Pickney, and then Casey Ross with a 77-yard pick six.
Yep, I remember 2 pick sixes.
That was the nail. That was the nail in the coffin with that one.
And Stevie, your honorable mentions real fast.
Okay, because I'm gonna go back a little, like I did with Biner. I'll probably go back a little further than you did with some of these guys. With one guy that doesn't get mentioned a lot, that was a big running back in the day with Biner too, was Tony Baker. Yeah, and let's see, I had McPhail, I had Leonard Henry, Dominique Lindsay.
Did I left out Leonard Henry completely?
Yeah.
Holy crap! How did I leave out?
That's what I'm saying. This list was hard, dude. Because
it's hard. It's a hard list,
man.
No
excuse to leave out Leonard Henry.
It's like picking a favorite youngin sometime.
But I didn't even put him on my. That was completely just I oversight on my part.
I'm just naming some of them that you didn't have on your honor or your list or honorable mention. But let's see who. Of course, Keaton was an honorable mention. Scott Harley was up there, but Scott Harley had that one really good year.
Yeah,
and another guy that doesn't get talked about a lot, David Daniels. But yeah, that's probably before your time too, Kyle.
Yeah, Leonard Henry's one that no
Yeah.
excuse to leave him off. Arguably should have been in both of our top fives. Leonard Henry was incredible.
Well,
Um,
and I can also add on to that as well. Like, so when Leonard Henry, Jerry Smith fell,
Oh
right?
yeah.
All those guys. So we all come from the same area in Sampson County,
right.
right? All like they went to Clinton. I went to Hopton, which is about maybe 10 miles apart, right? But Leonard, so I got a chance to like really learn Leonard and Jerry's because both of them are doing a lot for the community, along with like Willie Parker. He's also from Clinton as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them are doing a lot of good for the community. Leonard, he's a preacher, right? He's a preacher, and he comes back and he gives back to the community a lot. I know a few years ago, and this is when I was at ECU. We actually hosted a camp at Hopton. It was a group project, right? A high school student at Hopton host a project. Well, a part of that project, he wanted myself, my younger brother, and Leonard, like former ECU players, to come back and talk and speak. And Leonard, he did it with no problems. He didn't ask for no money. He was just like, hey, listen, I want to give back to the community. And that's just the type of guy he was. So growing up, watching him play, because to be honest, him and Willie and them boys, the way they played, even Brian Peterson, at NC State, those guys made, the younger guys like myself want to, play on that level, yet on the ECU. Like I remember 22. I remember him at ECU, and I was like, yo, like he's from Clinton, so if he can play, then I remember his short career for the Dolphins. And I was like, well, hey, if he can play at ECU and make it to the league, so can we, so but
That's a good
great
point.
dude.
That's a good point. How these players, and as an adult, I don't think about it very much, but how these players can be role models for kids who see them. Hey, he's from my hometown, and that's why I think it's so important to recruit Eastern North Carolina.
I know he's not an ECU guy, but you look at somebody like Willie Parker. Goes on to, and I think to this day still holds a record for longest run in the Super Bowl.
Yes, he does.
Yeah,
yes,
and see, I'm a diehard Steeler fan, Brian, and I have been for 45 years. So anytime I get to mention make a Steeler reference, and that's why you hear me saying, I hate Keaton for the Ravens. Yeah. So I was praying that Keaton would end up anywhere but Baltimore, and that's where he ended up. But I wish he was
well. So I'll add this as well. So about Willie Parker. So and I know he played. He didn't play at ECU, but Willie. So I got a chance to like really learn Willie Parker throughout my coaching career. So him, Torrey Holtz, they were all coaching at Heritage High School up here in Raleigh. At the time, I was coaching at Wakefield. I even was coaching at Millbrook, but I got a chance to like really get to know those guys. And, just looking at how many camps they were putting on, like the Holtz brother camps, right? Free of charge for the community kids. Willie Parker out there coaching running backs. I'll join in as well. And so I got a chance to like really work with these guys and get to like know who they were beyond being an athlete. And it seems to me like most of them are on the same page. Again, we all used our ability to get an education. And if we get a chance to play in the league, hey, listen, that's great. But we all understand that there's a life beyond the game. And it's very important that you pour into the community because the people before us did that to us. So the goal is to keep that cycle going, to keep to keep these younger guys out of the streets so that they can build their communities and do good for everybody.
And Brandon, as we start to wrap this up, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to talk about your brother Jason. And unfortunately, we lost your brother. And just talk about him as a person and being a teammate with him at East Carolina.
So great feeling. The funny part about it is that Jason and I, we were always teammates. We were teammates in middle school. We was teammates on JV. And I say that because our JV team, and a lot of people don't know it, but our JV team, my freshman year, went 9-0, right? And then sophomore, junior, senior year, we moved up to varsity, and we had our playoff runs going to the third round every year. We went to Elizabeth City State. We were roommates there. We played together there. We transferred together to ECU. We were roommates there for all the 3 years we was there. We shared the same backfield. We even got into coaching together. Now, he got out of coaching, right? Like, we coached together at Smithfield Summer. We coached together for a season. He realized, like, hey, listen, man, I need a break from football. And I respected that completely. But yeah, so we lost him a few years ago, but I will say that with confidence that, it does get better. And, the goal is to continue to push forward and, just go from there. At one point in time, like when it first happened, it was more of a challenge to have a conversation about it. Matter of fact, when he passed, that was my first year at Millbrook, and I was stunned. But at the same time, everything happened for a reason, and the goal of my family is to keep pushing every single day, keep getting better, because no one is guaranteed to see the next day. So that was my brother. We did everything together, but my ultimate goal is to make sure that his vision lives through me every single day. But yeah, that was my guy.
And Brandon, I don't know if you remember this. I kind of hope you don't. But at the Pirate football party Sports Objective hosted 5 years ago, you were one of the guests. And when I first met you, introduced myself. You introduced yourself. I said, "How's your brother Jason doing?" At the time, I had no idea he had passed away, and you had to tell me, and I felt like such an ass.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
even know.
I remember, I remember, but I will say that I was not offended by it. There was a few of my teammates that did, they know now, but at that particular time, they didn't really know, because when it happened, it wasn't like it was like
Right.
blasted across every forum, because we at the same, so I will say with mourning, right? Like, you want to mourn, but life still goes on at the same time. So it's like you gotta find that perfect medium between business and mourning. And at that particular time, we wanted to respect my mother's privacy, right? My family's privacy, right? So we put it out there, but once we put it out there, we didn't really work it through social media, because at that time I was away from the phone, and I'm glad I was, because oh my gosh, there was so many calls, so many texts. I mean, the funeral was packed to the max. I'm like, my God, like there's so many people. They even put up a bulletin board in Goldsboro, which was awesome. In memory of him. So I didn't get offended by.
What was Jason's ties to Goldsboro?
Well, no. So he didn't have ties to Goldsboro. It was just Eastern North Carolina. So it was just a big board that was in Eastern North Carolina, and it was surreal, because I didn't even know that it was there until someone took a photo of it and sent it. I was like, "Yo, what is this? This is crazy."
And that makes me feel even worse that I didn't know and ask you about it, because I am Kyle from LaGrange, and if you know Eastern North Carolina, you know where LaGrange is to Goldsboro.
It's all good, but definitely appreciate it. And I will say that we do remember him every single day. Anytime that I'm like in my hometown, I pay him a visit. His room at my mother's house is decorated with Pirate gear. He was also a Steelers fan as well, so it's Steelers stuff, ECU stuff, memorabilia, etc. And we just keep moving forward.
Well, anytime you lose somebody, particularly premature, is hard, and it's hard when you lose anybody. We started the podcast talking about the loss of a father, and talking about the loss of a brother, and and all I'll say is, dealing with the loss of my mom here recently, and I've lost several people out throughout the years. Like I told, and anybody out there that's listening, and this is a sports podcast, but we're all the family, and as you both know, and as I know, you grieve at your own pace, and don't let anybody tell you any different. And like Brandon said, and Stevie, I told you this the other day. Brandon said the same thing. Keep moving forward, baby. That's
keep moving forward. Take your time, and I will say this: take your time. It's okay to mourn, and it's okay. Like, perfectly, it's okay. It's normal. It's fine.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, you know what? I think we're going to do everybody a favor tonight and not talk about conference expansion. It is.
Okay, so we got Justin Butts saying he's working Southeast Raleigh Friday night.
Justin,
Okay.
Justin. Speaking of, he's working Southeast Raleigh Friday night. Justin, do you have any information, any updates on conference expansion? We know that you're privy maybe to some inside information. Anything you want to discuss, Justin?
Uh-oh.
We won't put Justin on the spot like that,
Yeah.
but well, if you don't know what Justin does, he's involved with East Carolina athletics. He with the Hall.
He's saying he can't say LOL wink wink.
All right, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I will say that you know, if any of you guys are ever in the area and you know want to get into a game, let me know. I will say that Friday is going to be a packed house. You know, this is a big time game for the South Side and Raleigh. They've been pushing it, and we're playing for the bell. And you know, the Bulldogs and the Eagles. The goal is to, you know, give everyone something to be excited about. You know, so look forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to Friday Night Football. I'll be checking all the scores Friday night here locally in Eastern North Carolina. I know there's coverage in Raleigh, WRAL, et cetera, et cetera. Stevie, do you guys get any coverage anywhere? I don't know, being a small academy, does WITN or any of the Virginia stations cover you guys?
Usually, if we play somebody like a Parrot Academy, or something like that, up into like we were on Channel 5 when we back in the day we played St. David's up there. We were up there a couple of times, but you know, usually not a lot of the TV stations are going to come down to the big metropolis of Alaska.
What is your primary? You're on that Virginia North Carolina border. Is WITN your primary station, or do you guys watch most of the Virginia stations?
See, the funny thing is they give us
Norfolk.
Yeah, the Norfolk channels. Justin Butts is saying, Parrot, y'all go play a real school game, Wayne Christian. Wow. We have played Wayne Christian over the years. We actually, what year was it? COVID year. I was the head coach of JV, and we beat, I want to say it was Wayne Christian we beat in the championship game. So, yeah.
There's Stevie talking
I think it was Wayne Christian now. I may be wrong.
I'm going to make it up. Yeah,
no,
next week somebody's going to be like, hey, why don't you play Hoggard Academy? And Stevie's going to be, you know, we beat them for the state championship.
No, Wayne. Justin's saying his wife's a cheerleader, and Justin, if she was,
your wife's currently a cheerleader in high school, Justin. Well, I don't know what to think about that.
Cheerleading coach at Wayne.
Okay, all right.
If she was back 3 years ago for the JV, so y'all probably made Justin. You can't forget, if you ever make the trip to Alaska, you will never forget it.
Alaska, North Carolina.
Yeah, you will never forget it because
it's really in Virginia.
If you blink, you will go through it. I mean, 95 people in the town, one stoplight, and but we are, you know, we got a good crew down here.
Suburb of Virginia, Alaska, North Carolina. All right,
no, not a suburb of Virginia. Come on, dude.
Basically.
No,
all right, guys. Unless we got no, you can't write with a suburb of Roanoke Rapids. Then, all right.
Okay, yeah.
Unless we got anything else, Brandon, you got any social media? Anything you want to promote?
Like always, man, you know, I do appreciate the invitation. You know, anytime that I get a chance to connect with you guys, you know, we always have a great time. You know, as far as social media, I'm pretty involved. I'm pretty active with social media, but my coach's social media is Coach_B Simmons. And, you know, I proudly support ECU football through my coach's Twitter. And I also proudly support you guys as well. So that's why I spend most of my time throughout the day whenever I'm on social media. Anything football, anything sports related, I'm on it. But I do appreciate the invitation. And anytime you guys want to talk ball, y'all know, contact me anytime. And if I'm not coaching ball, man, I'm always willing to talk it. So thank you for the invitation.
Bubba, if there's anything I need to promote, put it on the screen now. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to do that.
Justin is saying that game I was telling you about, he said, I acutely officiated that game that y'all played there.
There you go.
That was a barn burner of a game too.
All right. Well, we need to promote. Dr. George Kuntz is going to be on Absolute Empowerment with Coach Jeff Connors, and I believe that airs on Mondays. Is that right? Monday?
I think it's Mondays. Yeah.
I ought to know. You would think. And presented by Armored Life. So, and there you go, armoredlife.org. And that's, I believe that's Connor's foundation, if I remember right. And so definitely tune in and listen to that. Is it Mondays, Bubba? If you can put that on the screen. We got to clean this up. I got to get this cleaned up. We got to get the clothes here with the promotions cleaned up. This is unacceptable on my part.
It's on Monday at 7 p.m.
Yeah, Bubba's like, well, you should remember when the damn show is, and I wouldn't have to put it up on the screen.
That's real.
All right, guys. Well, now that I've goofed this up, I don't even trust myself to get any more plugs in. I will be. Hey, this is just show number 2. I'll be better prepared for show number 3. And I will say this: if there is any breaking news with this whole conference realignment thing, with the potential Pac-12 American Athletic Conference merger, who knows if that's a real thing or not. If anything breaks with that, we will have it here on the Sports Objective. I promise you we'll go live. Hopefully we'll be set up to take your phone calls, because that will be a big moment if it happens. So stay tuned. Keep it tuned to all our social media for any updates. When there's real news to put out there, we will put it out there. We're not going to post rumors and speculate, but if there's any real news to put out there, we'll put it out there. Keep your fingers crossed. And for Brandon Simmons, my co-host Stevie Fly, I am Kyle from LaGrange Barber, and you have been watching and or listening to Just Another Sports Podcast on the Sports Objective Podcast Network. So long, everybody, and go Pirates.